think it's one of those things that you need sort of constant reminding about. And especially if you go into a new team or somebody joins your team, the dynamics change because they've got this new personality coming in and different drivers. Welcome to the O for Food's Sake podcast, where we unwrap the joys and struggles of working in the food industry so you can thrive in what you do best while sustaining a rewarding and fulfilling career or business. We are your hosts, Lucy Wager, food industry consultant,
and Amy Wilkinson, food industry coach. We've worked in the food industry for the last 20 years, and we're here to share with you the benefit of our hindsight. Our podcast is for you to find new ways to cope with the daily struggles, but mostly to inspire you to work on what's not working to ultimately improve your career or business long term. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of O for Food's Sake. Today we're going to be talking about the disc profiling tool, and I think you may have heard me and Lucy talking about it a little bit, talking about the colours. I know a lot of you listening, maybe within your businesses, people sort of talk about this stuff. What does it all mean? And I have used disc profiling over the last couple of years, and it has really, really helped me on a personal level, like actually understand who I am. I mean, that sounds a bit like existential, but
no, it does though.
It's like, yeah, what matters to me and therefore how I communicate with others. And I'm now certified as an assessor, and I use it in training. And we've done some training together recently, Lucy, haven't we, where we've used disc. So
yeah.
The idea is, you can do more than a day's workshop doing disc. So we're not going to be able to go into loads and loads of detail. But today, this episode's all about helping you to understand how you can use disc as an individual, and how you can use it to build better relationships at work and as part of your team. And it really can, having this understanding of how you work, it's really helpful to understand why certain people really annoy you and are difficult to communicate with.
And I think it's really, even when you've done disc or a similar version, the colours in your workplace, I think the reason I wanted to do this episode is there's so much to learn about, because it is a bit overwhelming at first, because you suddenly you initially look at it all from your perspective and like what it means for you, because it's quite illuminating. But then I think it's really important to understand like how that affects like who you are, how that affects your communication with other people and their colours. And it can be really transformative. Like even at home, I found it really useful because my husband is very red. And learning how to communicate effectively with somebody that's different to you is really useful.
Yeah. And I think it's eye-opening. And I think sometimes what I see in some places, people will know it's kind of a little bit of that, you scratch the surface. And some people kind of maybe use it as an excuse or a label or something like that. And it isn't about that. It's just about opening up curiosity for self-awareness and then awareness of the people around you, and the fact that we don't all want to be communicated to in the same way. And when I first started doing it, so I've used it, like I say, personally, probably 2 or 3 years. And then I did my certification last year, and I've not really got into the depth of it until I've started using it with teams and stuff. It can really feel like sometimes when you go into work, like it's like everybody's come in just specifically to piss you off. And actually, one of the great phrases that Donna, who did my training with me, said is, people don't do things against you, they do them for themselves. And if you realise that it's not, everything isn't a personal attack, it's just
not all
because
about
we're doing
you.
it.
Newsflash. It's not all about you.
And the fact that people are just doing it because that's their preference. And I think, anyway, let's get into what it is and stuff, because we're babbling on about it and there might be people that have got no clue what it is. So it's a profiling system, and it comes right back from the early 20th century. And it originates from the work of the psychologist William Moulton Marston. And he had a book in 1928 called Emotions of Normal People. I'm not sure that would be very neuro-inclusive these days to say that. But really what he did was he came up with 4 main types of people. And these are all kind of based on whether you are somebody that is more relationship focused. So think about when something comes in, a piece of work comes in, and what am I going to do with this? Are you more relationship focused or are you more task focused? So a lot of us might be like, okay, right, what's got to get done? What's on the to-do list? All of that sort of stuff. Other people might be thinking, how is this going to affect the team? Who's going to do it? How am I going to get people to do it? So that's the difference between relationship and task. And then on the other axes, because we love a quadrant, it's how outgoing or introverted you are. So by outgoing, I don't always mean that you are an extroverted person that, talks a lot. What I mean is you're more action orientated. You're more likely to say, let's give it a go. Let's get on with it. Want to do things quickly, more results orientated. Or are you more steady? You're more introverted, more, I want to think about this. How am I going to do it? And let's work through this methodically. So more of an introverted profile. So they're the sort of two axes. And out of that come these four profiles. So the first one, and I'm going to use the colours that I use within the DISC profiling system that I use, but there's some other businesses that have changed the colours a little bit to suit their intellectual property, which is a bit confusing, I would say. Yeah, so they've got I can't remember if it's the blue and the green the other way around. But anyway, I'll talk colours, but I'll actually talk about what the D, I, S and C are. So that's the DISC bit.
Can I ask a question? The book Surrounded by Idiots?
Yeah.
Is that based on...
It's on these colours that I'm going to...
These colours?
DISC, yes, yeah. And that was something I was going to say as a book recommendation is definitely Thomas Erickson, Surrounded by Idiots. So he really brings it to life. And he's got a few different ones now. He's got Surrounded by Idiots. He's got Surrounded by Narcissists. It's all this where we feel like everyone else is the problem. And, anyway. So the four types, the first one that you mentioned your husband is a D, so dominance. So often they're called a red type. So very direct, very results driven, likes a challenge and tends to have quite a strong ego.
He's dark red.
Dark red. So that is somebody that is extroverted and task focused. So they want to get on with it and they want to do it quickly. Like, why are we wasting time? Let's just get on with it. Then the next one is I, so influence. So this is often called the yellow type. This is me. I'm quite high in yellow. People that are enthusiastic, very people orientated. They thrive on connections. They're often big picture thinkers, creative thinkers, and we'll come on to the things that can be really annoying about people like me. But that's, if you're listening, you'll start to be able to kind of create a picture of people So think about people So we've talked about the reds, talked about the yellows, and then the next one is steadiness. There's there's other words for that S, but if you think about steady, supportive, so this is the green colour, supportive, consistent, values harmony, likes to do things methodically.
This is me.
This is you and a team player.
I've been in denial my whole life.
So share with the listeners your denial.
So if you haven't done a DISC profile before, what is really interesting is that it shows you what your outward show is. So what you show the world and what how is it the actual term, Amy?
I can't remember the actual term, but it's basically
inward, who you really are. What you really want.
So it's like your outside mask, what you really are. I mean, you are all of those things because we are our outward mask as well.
Yeah.
But if what you're more likely to default to. And then there's the other one, which is what you think other people perceive you as.
So what I think other people perceive me as historically was yellow.
Mm-hmm.
But my inward, yellow and extroverted.
Yeah.
But my inward is green and introverted. And I've been on clearly been on a long career journey, roller coastery, startup. I've had an ADHD diagnosis. And all of this sort of made sense because internally I kind of crave that steadiness and consistency. But I have this sort of hyperactivity going on to do more and show more and keep going. And anyway, I'm not explaining this very well, but it's been revolutionary for me to understand actually how I work best and
what your actual preference
what
is.
my actual preference is, because I don't drive myself to, unhappiness, I suppose.
Yeah. And this is the thing. This is what this is all about, is just having that better understanding of yourself. And actually having that understanding really can help you as an individual. But what I think is really important to mention at this point is we are all of these things. None of us are just one of them. We have a preference that we might default to in certain situations. But if you think of it like a graphic equalizer, so, we've got ones, there's probably people thinking, I don't know what that is. We used to have them like on our stereos when we were younger. But, you can dial up or dial down different behaviours, but you'll always have your kind of default. And particularly when you put under stress, or like when you take the mask off, you will be a different one. Right, I'm really conscious of, we've done the first three. I need to just get out what the fourth one is, and then we can get a bit more into discussion about it. So we've talked about green, steadiness. The next one is blue, which is compliance. So a C for compliance, which is people that are very analytical, detail focused, and they really value things being precise and being correct. So if you think about, again, on the scales that I talked about before, they're very task focused and they're quite introverted and, steady and methodical. And this is my other half. So this is Barry. So if you think about it, because it's all put in a circle. So if you think about go clockwise around a circle, so you've got D at the top left and you go round, often you might struggle with the profile that is opposite to yours. So you are green.
Married. Yeah, we've both married people.
That are opposites.
Opposite. What? but you can also...
we complement each other as well.
Exactly.
That's the thing.
I think that's what's understanding this. And when you're talking about dialing up and dialing down, because I find red a challenging colour to do myself and also to deal with. But once you start to understand it more and you know that you need to dial that up or deal with a red, or, get my husband to do something that I want to do, you understand how to work the conversations in the best way. Yeah,
exactly. And this is the point, because I was like, right, what is the relevance to people listening? Well, in the food industry, we're constantly having, communication is like so key, and that whole cross-functional communication is so important. And I don't like to stereotype, but there are, if you think about the colours that we've talked about, who do you think, Lucy, in terms of is more likely to get drawn to certain specific functions? It is more likely to be that sort of person. So a D, so the dominant type, who comes to mind for you for that?
Oh, well, I know the answers.
Go on, tell us.
So commercial.
Yeah. And then the influence, the yellows, the bright bubbly. Everybody to their friends.
I was going to say development and marketing tend to be yellows.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of that workshop we did a while ago, and we get people to stand up, don't we, in the room and go to the different corners. And there was quite a lot of people in the yellow area there, wasn't there? And then the S, so the steady, the green.
So development tends to be yellow, green mixes. Mm-hmm. But I don't know what else fits into green.
Well, green is actually one of the...
Oh, yeah, most people...
most people have green. So if you think it's team players, it's doers, you need greens on your team, because they're the ones that are actually getting things done, because they're steadily getting things done. The yellows are busy talking about it. The reds have already gone off and done it. And the blues are still analysing how to do it. I mean, I'm being very stereotypical.
I know, but it is true. It is true, because I'm probably jumping ahead. But the big thing about communicating with a red is being direct and to the point, which I cannot be very good at, because I like to go in like 50,000 different directions.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick breather here to hear from our fantastic sponsors. They help keep the podcast going, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Ensuring food safety and quality is crucial. That's why businesses trust Microsearch Laboratories, part of the IFP Labs Group. UCAS-accredited Microsearch offers microbiological, nutritional and allergen testing for food, drink and water, delivering fast results and expert support. With over 30 years of experience, trusted by leading manufacturers and retailers, and a commitment to sustainability, Microsearch is your partner in product safety. Visit micro-search.co.uk to learn more.
And we're back. Thanks for sticking with us. Let's dive right back in. Well, this is the thing. So, and then in terms of the compliance, so the blue, so if you think about the sorts of people that, you know, want things to be right and correct and all of that sort of stuff. So you're thinking technical and finance.
Yeah.
Now, it's really important. And again, I will reiterate this as at many points in this podcast. It does not mean that if you are a red, you cannot work in finance. It doesn't mean, you know, like I don't want people to listen and think, oh, well, I'm in completely the wrong job.
Well, you're not just one, are you? That's the thing.
Well, we're not just one. Yeah. And actually, the reality is we adapt, you know, whatever job function we're doing, we will use our strengths to do that job.
Yeah.
So let me think of, like, I'm thinking of an accountant that I know that clearly wasn't blue, Amy Polly, who we've had on the podcast a couple of times, who is off the scale I would say, based on what I know about her. So very yellow, very flamboyant, whatever. But she was an accountant. It doesn't mean that you can't do that job. It just means that you will do it in a different way. And
it can mean that you're, because when we were doing a training session, we had somebody that was in a role, but not stereotypically the colour that was in that role. Mm-hmm. And we had a discussion about it. And it was really interesting because when you're having that diversity is really important because it brings different skills and different ways of doing things.
Yeah. And I think it's really, and this is where we're starting to get into how it's really useful to understand it, because I've worked with a leadership team of developers, you know, MPD managers, and they were all red, or some had a little bit of yellow in them, but they were dominant. And the problem is that everybody, you know, there's a group of egos there. Everybody's just trying to get things done. Their poor teams have got no, you know. So for instance, if you are, we'll go into what all the challenges are of each of them. If you're a high D, if you're listening and you're kind of like, yeah, I'm all of those things, like, why wouldn't you be decisive and get on with things and take action? Actually, the flip side of that is that you can be quite impatient. You might be too direct. So like, and I have quite a lot of D in me as well. So I'm ID, where, you know, like people get really annoyed because you haven't asked them how they were in an email. And I'm like, oh my God, can we just get to the point? Where's all the fluff? So you can end up being a bit too direct, a bit too controlling. People might be a bit scared of you because you're a bit conflicty and you don't really like feedback, like, you know, because the ego is big. But, you know, there's some massive strengths, you know, without the Ds, we wouldn't be getting stuff done. Things wouldn't get driven forward. Sometimes you need someone that's just going to make a decision, don't you? So there's balance in all of it. But if you are a high D and, you know, as we go through them all, thinking about how that might affect the other people around you. Next one being high I, which is me. So this yellow are great influencers, really, you know, people generally like them and this, that and the other, but they tend to be a bit flaky and a bit disorganised, get easily distracted, talk too much, you know, like can railroad a conversation about, you know, make it about them somehow. Actually, much as the Ds don't mind a bit of conflict, yellows don't really like conflict. Like we might be extroverted, but we don't really like conflict. And we really, really, like, I have this massive fear of getting cancelled. Like, so really, social approval is really important to me. And we had this conversation last week, didn't we? Because me and Lucy have, you know, we've been much more aware of our DISC profiles. It really matters to me that I get inbox messages from people that listen to the podcast. Like, that really drives me, because it's just like relationships are so important
coming,
to me.
People.
Keep
she
them
needs
coming.
them.
But that's the thing. Like, so this constant kind of need for approval can be, so you're a bit needy, like, and that can be quite annoying to other people. And I was listening to a podcast of somebody else that was a high I, and they were talking about, you know, knowing when you've got to adjust your energy. Like, the risk is I always come into a room full of charisma and this, that and the other, and it's just annoying, you know, a room full of blue people and green people, and they're thinking, shut up. Like pulling yourself back a little bit in those situations.
But also, I mean, I know we're talking about the negative, but yeah, sometimes you've got to read the room. But most of the time, that energy is great.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, this is not about saying don't be you. And I did a workshop with a big group, and what a part of there was the discussion that came up that was like, but I thought we were supposed to bring our whole selves to work these days and this, that and the other. And absolutely, like, I'm not saying you shouldn't be you, but just be aware that the way you communicate may not be as helpful as you want it to be. So you might want to adjust it. That's all we're talking about. And like I say, you know, we have our public persona. You know, I'll be bubbly as hell all day and then I'll get home and I'm straight in pajamas, makeup's got to come off, you know, and I retreat into the green me. So, you know, it's not about not being authentic. It's just different parts of you.
And that's why the disc profile is really useful, because it splits down that outward and inward. That has really helped me sort of understand like where I'm dialing up, because I do struggle, because there's only 4 and you learn where you need to be, you know, between the green and the yellow. I can really see where I dial up and dial down, and it's really useful to see.
Yeah. And what Lucy's talking about is if you get a proper profile done. So there are kind of free things on the internet, but it doesn't delve into as much detail. So it's the detailed report, which only people that have got a certified in DISC can get for you, which, you know, I can. So the next one is the green, so the steadiness. So can sometimes be resistance to change, Lucy?
See, I don't really...
You're not, but this is where I think you flip between the different ones.
And I don't know whether this is useful for anybody else, but I feel like I'm in a bit of denial, because I think you read them and think, I want to be that person. And because people have always said to me, oh, you're really enthusiastic, you're so charismatic, and so that's an I. So that's how people see me. But
well, that's the perception versus how you feel inside.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I don't really associate with any of the negatives of the green. I only associate with
there's a surprise, Lucy. You don't ever have any difficulty asserting yourself, and you don't avoid conflict?
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah, I do.
You bloody well do.
At home, I don't, you see.
Yeah.
So that's the difference.
Well, and that's the thing, we flex. And when you do a disc profile, you have to really take into consideration when somebody's filled it in and in what. So sometimes I'll go into an organisation and they'll give me their disc profile that they did, but that went through HR. So you're going to fill it in slightly differently knowing somebody else is going to read it rather than an external person potentially. So it's all of that sort of stuff. But, you know, as an example, it could be if you are listening and you are somebody that finds it really hard, is a bit people pleasery, finds it really hard to chase people up, is a bit overly nice, don't call people out when they're not doing their things on a critical path. That's that high S energy coming through, where it's hard to, because an S cares so much about people and the team, they don't want to upset people, and sometimes that comes through, if you think of it, is it's the opposite to the D.
Yeah.
It comes through as not getting stuff done because you're not willing to push people. And then the C, the compliance, so the blue, this is my other half. I wrote down black and white thinking, oh, flip me, yes. Closed to new ideas and change, can be overly critical, bit perfectionist. And like for me, with Barry, he can be really pedantic. Like I say one word wrong in a sentence and he's picked up on that, not what the sentence was about. You can tell this is one I struggle with a little bit. Can be risk averse, but can find it difficult to adapt. And again, as a stereotype, less likely to be emotionally expressive. So other end of the scale is the I, which is really, really like overly the top. You might not know what a C is thinking because they're not likely to give much away. So I thought it'd be useful just to have a quick overview of how you can improve your communication with each of those types. How's that sound?
Yeah, really good.
So with a dominant type, you need to be more direct, potentially, focus on the results. So when I was saying about a piece of work coming in, this is about when we've got to get it done, how quickly can we get it done, and what are we going to get out of it? And that usually, if it's based on something that makes them look good, that's good. I always think like if you know you're working with somebody that is a D, get to the point as quickly as possible, cut to the chase. In an email, don't put loads of like fluff in it. Just, this is what's happened. This is what we need to do. This is the action I need you to take. That's all they need to know. And it's all like, depending on what it is, what their role is and what motivates them, always talk about the end result that matters to them. Don't talk about people. Not that they don't care about people, but it's not the primary focus. It's not the first thing that comes to mind for them in the project. It's not like, oh, we've got to do this. We can't do this because everybody's working 70-hour weeks and whatever. And that person's thinking, yeah, well, we've just got to get it done, haven't we? Whereas if you said, we can't do that because we don't have X and this means we won't deliver Y, they're much more likely to respond to it. So it's just thinking about that. And then with your I's, so your influence, your yellow people, be enthusiastic, have that friendly conversation, keep things positive. Nobody likes a Debbie Downer when they're a yellow. Hates that kind of feeling of being the life being sucked out of the room. Keep things friendly, keep things light, give recognition to them. Like I said, we like an arm stroke and being told that we're doing a good job, and use their strengths actually, because they are really good people to influence other people. So actually, rather than seeing like that flaky annoyingness all the time, think, how can I leverage the fact that they're really good at relationships? So do talk about people and
idea.
What's in it for them. And then with the greens, the steadies, steadfastness, steadiness. So I have an assistant who is this. This is good to have an assistant who is this, but I find it frustrating sometimes because I'm like much more action orientated. So I'm like, do we need to think of 5 different reasons why I've got to do it this way or whatever, or, but it's required. So actually some patience is required. Reassurance is needed if you're a green. Does this resonate?
Yeah.
Really, you're feeling these ones. Focus on stability, be clear, give clear instructions, and allow time for reflection. This one as well, this was something that I had a team that were mainly S's, and I didn't realise this at the time because I hadn't done my colours, and I was really like just being the, big like flamboyant Amy, and I would do things like in a team meeting, I would give really positive feedback to somebody in the meeting and they would be dying. And I'd be like, well, why wouldn't you? Because as a yellow, I'm like, well, it's amazing when somebody says you're great in front of other people. Actually giving feedback to greens, do that in private, whether it's positive or negative feedback. It's just cringeworthy for them that to happen in front of a load of people. So I think that's a really useful if you've got a lot of greens in your team. And then the conscientious or the compliant, the C's, the blues. This is where you've got to be detailed, provide data and facts, respect that things have to be right for them, that the need for accuracy. Don't try and pull on their emotions. You're not going to get anywhere with that. It's not about emotion. It's about whether it's right or wrong, and give them time to digest information. So I think if you have again, when I had a load of data analysts in my team, I would be like, let's get in a room and brainstorm and blah, blah, blah. And they would just shut down because it's like, I cannot say anything unless I know it's right or wrong. So it was always with them about giving them the information in advance so they could go away and do the thinking, do the analysis, and then they would come back with the idea. So really recognizing that you have to adapt to those different people, and you get so much more out of people than if you're putting them in a situation that is really uncomfortable.
It's just that recognition that, it sounds obvious, but it's that recognition that other people aren't driven by the things that drive you.
Yeah.
And I think I've spent most of my career feeling, second guessing what other people think or how they're going to react to something. And I think understanding this is really useful to understand how to get the best out of everybody around you.
Yeah. And when we do it in workshops and stuff, I have like crib sheets, don't I, in terms of like, this is the sorts of like how you adapt. And I have one, I'm looking over to my left, I have it stuck on the wall, because even when I'm in one-to-one coaching sessions, it's useful sometimes when somebody's talking about something, I'm like, oh, that's really an S behavior. Like how could you be adapting to that?
And that's the other reason, because we've probably talked about some of this stuff before, but I think it's one of those things that you need sort of constant reminding about. And especially if you go into a new team and there's somebody joins your team, the dynamics change because they've got this new personality coming in and different drivers, and you need reminding about.
And I think it helps you to understand why you're attracted to certain people and you get on really well with them, why some rub you up the wrong way, but also this, how do you have balance within the team? It's even good to think about it when you're recruiting, like, we've got so many of this type, we need this type. Often I see in MPD teams there's very few C's in there, and sometimes they're needed, but even that understanding that need for compliance, need to be things right, helps with the relationship with technical teams, because there can be this frustration all the time.
Yeah.
So it's really, really helpful to understand it. If you want to understand more about it, I do obviously do DISC profiles as part of one-to-one coaching, but I also run it as a full workshop as part of training, all of that sort of stuff. But also Donna in my team is accredited to also train the trainer, so train other people to be able to run disc profiles. So if you wanted somebody within your team, like within your business to be able to do it, she can do that as well. But I think for listeners today, I really wanted like some actions to go away with. So first of all, I would say, so three bite-sized actions for you. So first of all, identify what your preference is. Either use a coach to do that, or just from what we've described today, you'll already have an understanding. You don't have to pay for this. And reflect on what strengths and challenges that means for you. Like, where does it help you and where is it not so helpful? And then the second one is start to look at the people around you, observe the people around you. What profile do you think they are? And where is that challenging for you? So like, who are the people that you get on really well with? Who are the people that rub you up the wrong way? And what might it be about their colour profile that does that? And then the third one being discuss it with your team and maybe use it in a team session. I know a lot of people that have done that, just in a team meeting, talking about the preferences. And obviously Fearless Foodies can facilitate that as well if you wanted a facilitated day on it. But
it's a really useful like team building exercise, because there might be people in the team that are rubbing you up the wrong way and vice versa. And this is a sort of safe way of talking about that.
Yeah, airing it. Yeah.
And understanding why, and just understanding that it's different things driving different people. And you're trying to, like, say, for example, when I'm communicating with a red, I have to really think about the fact that I've got to be direct and not waffle too much and get to the point.
Yeah.
So knowing that is really useful, because they get what they need and you get what you want from them.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. It's win-win, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope you found that useful. As Lucy said, there's a great book called Surrounded by Idiots by Thomas Erickson. I'll put the link to that in the show notes. And also do get in touch if you want any help with DISC with your team and understanding a little bit more about it. And we will see you next time.
See you next time. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it, rate and review us. It really helps us reach more food industry pros like you.
For more resources, head over to our website, overfoodsake.co.uk, and join our mailing list to stay in touch.
And if you'd like to connect with us, come say hello on LinkedIn. We're both there, Lucy Wager and Amy Wilkinson.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.